Welcome back to my channel. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. Click on the notification bell so that whenever I post a video, you will be notified about it. Let's get the channel to 20K. With that said, let's get into today's video. In this video, an American nurse shocks CNN with her response on Gaza. When asked if she would go back to Gaza, she says her heart is in Gaza because the people she met there were the most incredible people she has ever met. The nurse talked about how Palestinian doctors and nurses kept her alive for 26 days and did everything they could to get her home safe. This is really a touching video because these doctors literally refused to move south of Wadi Gaza because they would rather stay in Gaza and help or save as many people as they can. Take a look at this video as the American nurse shares this with CNN. I will be right back, and when I do, we talk more about this topic.
Would you go back to Gaza?
In a heartbeat. In an absolute heartbeat. My heart is in Gaza. It will stay in Gaza. The Palestinian people that I worked with, both our national staff in the office as well as my staff at Indonesia Hospital, were some of the most incredible people I've ever met in my life. When everything went off and we got the notice to move south of Wadi Gaza, I was texting my nurses at Indonesia Hospital and I said, we lost a nurse weekend one. He was killed when the ambulance outside the hospital was blown up. And I was texting them when we got the evacuation orders and I said, did any of you move south? Did any of you get out? Like, are any of you coming down this way? And the only answer I got was, this is our community. This is our family. These are our friends. If they're going to kill us, we're going to die saving as many people as we can. And I said, if I can ever have an ounce of the heart that you have, I'll die a happy person. They were incredible. I would like to send out a reminder that there are civilians seeking shelter there and that my doctors and nurses didn't leave out of loyalty to their community. And I know that there is an idea being pushed right now that anyone that stayed behind is going to be considered some kind of a threat. And I want to remind people that the people that stayed behind are heroes. The people that stayed behind they know they're going to die and they're choosing to stay behind anyway.
You're talking about doctors, nurses in the hospital.
I wake up every morning and I send out a text message and I ask, are you alive? And every night before I go to sleep, I send another message and says, are you alive?
Well, Kelly, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Now, it really takes a person with a big heart to be this selfless and not think of themselves in such a situation. Looking at the chance they had to move south of Wadi Gaza, them deciding to stay instead, regardless of how dangerous this is, just shows how these Palestinian doctors and nurses are selfless. Like, they really care about their community. They were so ready to risk their lives for their community and the people in it. What a bold move this was. For now, let's check out these videos and hear what people had to say about this video. Stay glued. I will be right back.
Emily Callahan is a nurse for Doctors Without Borders who was evacuated from Gaza, and she just did an interview with CNN. And I want to remind you of two things to take into your mind critically when watching this interview. The first one is that in order for CNN to have any reporters on the ground, all of their footage about what is going on has to be run through Israel. There is a news article with a voiceover that says pretty much that exact words. So what you're hearing is what has been approved by the apartheid state. Secondly, when she says Palestinians began to harass her because she was a nurse, it is not because she is a nurse, it is not because she is white. Nor would I say harassment is the appropriate word for her to use. I wasn't there. I don't know necessarily exactly how it happened. But I do know, since that's an aggressive word, and that the document and the footage of her doing this interview for CNN had to be run through Israeli censorship, I can take an educated guess that it might be a bit of a hyperbole, or it might not be the best word for the situation. But I can further back up that hypothesis, because I want you to think about the average mom and dad in Gaza right now. The last things they were hearing before having no internet, no electricity, was America is funding this to happen to you. Now you are that mom or you are that dad. What would your gut dissonant reaction be to seeing someone working with an international company, someone clothed, someone with access to food and water, trying to work in your hospital, knowing the land they're from is paying for the destruction of which you're enduring, the destruction of which you've brought your child to her, hoping for her to help. You're not going to feel good about it. Your gut reaction is going to be, I don't know if this is the American I can trust, or if this is the American that's reporting back to the American government. With the full context of the picture that we get, or the mostly full context that we get from the interview, from knowing what's going on the ground, and from knowing who she works for, we can make the educated guess that she's probably just there to help. The Palestinians in Gaza do not have that information to make the educated guess. They are going to be acting on a fight or flight response. Did she have a bunch of Palestinian families coming up and harassing her for help or out of fear? Maybe. Probably. If you're an American and every British person suddenly started paying for you to get hit on the head with a rock, what would your gut reaction to a British person be? That's also why it's nothing about Palestinians being Palestinian or white people being white. It is the country she's from and her occupation, and that very understandably scared people. When they are under active sky fire, they don't have the time to step back and say, oh, is it not all Americans? Or in this case, to protect myself, does it need to be all Americans? That should sound really similar to another conversation we've had in America. Sure, we logically know it's not all, but in a drastic moment of life or death, we don't have the time to sit down and collect all the data to figure out right then and there, are you one of the safe ones or are you one of the dangerous ones? We can worry about public relations and we can worry about stereotyping after we ensure that Palestinians are safe, that people that are in the Congo, that people in Sudan, that people in Haiti are safe. But right now, it is okay to accept anger coming from Palestinians. I wanted to hop onto that before people started saying that she was proving the point that Palestinians are dangerous or something, when again, most of them are children. And most of them have been disabled in this mass disabling event if they're still alive, so it's not like they pose much of a threat to a random American doctor sitting on the ground trying to take care of people. I know it feels weird to look at this thing with the big picture because pretty much everywhere professionally is telling you, don't look at the big picture, look at the big picture. It is okay. We're all here to teach each other. We're all here to make sure these people are safe. Don't get on Palestinians for having brains and using effective neurology when their brains make them experience effective neurology.
If you haven't watched already, go watch this interview from an American nurse that was in Gaza that was able to leave 3 weeks into the aggression. She gives the most honest advocation for Palestinians, and this is something I was surprised that CNN let air. The way she humanized them, even when Anderson Cooper tried to trap her with questions saying, was she fearful that the people in Palestine were going to unalive her? She said, absolutely not. Those were my family. I wish I could go back. If it meant me dying, I would do it in a heartbeat. This is what using your privilege for good looks like. And the fact that it takes for somebody to say the message, somebody that looks ideal, it's so hard to even concept that, but I'm so thankful that she was able to say that.
Thank you.
4 things I want to say about this video. First is that it is quite refreshing to see a Westerner interviewed on this Western media that is not there denigrating Palestinians, calling them savages and subhumans and all such nonsense. There are very few of them that are interviewed, so whenever I see any interview like this, I find it very refreshing. It's rare these days to see that happen, see someone from the West being interviewed and is not, singing the same songs as the leaders of Western nations and Israel. So that is one. Second thing is how shocking it is to see the interviewer looking as shocked as Anderson Cooper looked there, listening to this woman talk about her experiences in Gaza. I don't understand why he is that shocked. Does it mean he really believes the lies he is told to tell about these people? Does he really believe the things he said? Does he not know better? I mean, when he looks that shocked, it's either he doesn't know better or he is acting. So which is it? Is he acting there? Do you think he's acting? Or he really doesn't know? He really thinks that Palestinians are these evil, subhuman mongrels that the Western governments and Israel describes them as. That is number two. Now, number three is, look at that woman and everything she said. Why is she able to say that? Because she has gone out and she has lived among these people. And she knows that they are human beings. They are good people. That's why she knows that. And that is the only reason she knows that. This brings me to Westerners and what they know about other people. The problem Westerners have is that many of them never leave their country or the West. They are born in the West, they live in the West, they die in the West. They never step outside of the West, interact with other people, other races outside their countries. So they know nothing about any other people except what their media shepherds feed them. That is where the hate starts. That is when you don't know people, you fear them, you hate them if you are told to do so. If someone is telling you these people are evil, they do this, they do that, and you have no first-hand experience of those people, you tend to believe what you're told. So that is the problem that Westerners have. The only people you see, most of the people you see among the Westerners who talk good about other people are those of them who have gone out, lived in these other areas among these other people, and see for themselves firsthand what those people are like. No race is, all evil. There are bad people everywhere, but the majority in every race are good people. So when you live among people, you get to know them, you know about them, so that if anyone wants to tell you they're evil, they're this, they're that, you won't believe that because you know about these people, you have lived with them. So the problem Westerners have, Western citizens have, is that an overwhelming majority of them never leave their own country. They never leave their region. So they know nothing about any other part of the world except what their media feeds them.
Now, this American nurse who returned to the United States after working in Gaza did say that some of her colleagues had chosen to stay in the besieged territory despite knowing they could be unalived. In an interview with CNN, Doctors Without Borders nurse activity manager Emily Callahan said she had been in Gaza since August and she was evacuated on Wednesday. Callahan further described thousands of Palestinians living in terrible condition while struggling with attacks from Israel. There were children with massive burns down their faces, down their necks, all over their limbs, and because the hospitals are so overwhelmed, they are being discharged immediately after, and they are being discharged to these camps with no access to running water. There are 50,000 people at that camp now and 4 toilets, and they are given 2 hours of water every 2 hours, Callahan told CNN. Callahan said people would wander around with fresh open burns, wounds, and partial amputations conditions. Parents bring their children to us going, "Please, can you help? And we have no supplies," she added. When asked on will she ever go back to Gaza, she said without a second thought that she would. "In an absolute heartbeat, I would go back to Gaza. My heart is in Gaza and it will stay in Gaza." The Palestinian people I've worked with, both our national staff in my office as well as my staff at Indonesia in the hospital, were some of the most incredible people I've ever met in my life, she said. Commenting further, she said that one of her colleagues, who is also a nurse, was unalived in the first weekend of the counter-strikes war on October 7. Israel launched a series of airstrikes on Gaza since it declared war on Hamas on 7 October. The ongoing war has resulted in civilian unalivings and injuries, and more Palestinians have been unalived, with thousands more injured. Is it safe to welcome Western media outlets to reality as of yet? Like, did CNN really air that? carry on with the narrative, because I am very much interested to see where this is going. Wait, do they still want to know people's stance on this, or we can now talk about the situations in Gaza? Can we talk about the state of these people's lives, or they still want to know where people stand on Hamas? Because Emily Callahan talked about the situations of the hospital in Gaza and how there are no supply. She also went into a lot of detail about the camp setup for people who have been displaced due to this Bay of Gaza, where she even mentioned that there's many as 50,000 people that only have access to the toilets available there. Also, Al Jazeera reported that as many as 70% of the population within the Gaza Strip has been displaced due to the ongoing Bay and chilling. 70% of an estimated 2.3 million people, so that's like 1.61 million, that have left their homes and are trying to seek safety in a place where there's no safety to be found. Now, this video speaks volumes on what type of people Palestinians are. Basically, she gave an amazing testimony of the people of Gaza, Palestinian people, and how they treated her, how they protected her, and basically telling us that these people are risking their lives for their families, for their communities. And even a stranger like her, where they didn't have to care about her, like they could have just been, thinking about themselves and surviving, but they took care of her and made sure she was back home safe. Here are a few reactions on how this video made different people feel. This one says, her testimony had me sobbing when I first heard how resilient and beautiful Palestinians are. I'm shocked CNN posted that. It's important for people like her to speak up. Free Palestine. With every story that comes out like this, the narrative the government are trying to push unravels further. Free Palestine. I really wish she would have mentioned that there was no Hamas using her as a shield. That would have been impactful. Her testimony was one of the best things I've seen come out of this. Let's hope media will lift up Palestinian voices too. They have been saying this since forever. Anderson thought he could turn this into some sort of narrative against Palestine, but my good sister ate him up right off the jump. Those who say the Palestinians are bad is because they want to take their land and they are resisting. Kindly share your own thoughts as well in the comment section. Thank you for watching, and see you in my next video.